Welcome to Religion Review. In this episode, that is sponsored by James K. Sciacolosi, we'll discuss our visits to the synagogue and focus on our experiences, differences, and similarities that we notice between Judaism and our experiences with Catholicism.
So, like, whenever I went to the synagogue, I was kind of interested because I didn't know that much about it, and I heard a lot about. I've heard small amounts of stuff about synagogues, but I didn't know that much. So I was kind of expecting something sort of like a church service, but not anything beyond that. What about you guys?
Yeah, me too. Like for one thing, I was thinking it would be similar to a Catholic service. So I was expecting like all male leadership, and like a more quiet atmosphere. Um, both of which were not true, but it was very cool to get there.
My expectations were similar to Griffin's. I thought that it would be much more formal than it actually was. I was also not expecting any female leadership, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that there actually was. There was also a lot of like the communal aspect, or my expectations were that there wasn't going to be the communal aspect of the Catholic Church or even like the Protestant church that we went to last year. But again, that did happen, which we'll talk about later. Let's talk about first about the differences. Anybody want to talk about some differences that they saw in the synagogue?
Yeah, sure. As far as the building goes, I would say the artwork was sort of like more stripped down than a Catholic church. There was like less around the space, um, closer to like the Protestant churches that we visited last year for a project in Theo class, but not like quite as blank as those walls, I would say. Um, I went to Temple Emmanuel and it was like really, really, really big. It was gigantic. Um, and so that was a cool space to be in. Yeah.
At my synagogue, I went to a different one, the Town and Village Synagogue. Um, the artwork was also rather pared down from what you would expect at a Catholic church, being like a few like prints on the walls, like picture of a Torah, I think, but not much else aside from that. I was kind of expecting more, and however, my service was in like equivalent of a side chapel because there weren't that many people at my service, so I didn't see the main area.
Mhm.
So I also went to Temple Emmanuel, and again, like the art was very stripped down. There was nothing much on the walls, but I think that that was to like show the clear like focus on the Torah and the altar and
Mhm.
like the rabbi. Like it was like we were all pointing. It was like a Catholic church in terms of seating and whatnot, but it was all like pointed towards the altar, and I think that's why they didn't have much of the artwork on the walls.
Yeah. The like sort of altar space was like really beautiful. They had a big gold ark where they stored some scrolls. And everything was very colorful up there. So I think the blankness of the other walls was probably to bring your attention to the main area.
Yep. So Thomas, like since you were like in a slightly smaller community, do you have any like takeaways from that that might be different to our experiences?
Well, I don't know how many people went to your synagogue service, but there like only a handful of people went to mine. So, I mean, it's like you if you were a regular goer to the synagogue, you would probably know everyone better since there are fewer people. But if there's a lot of people, it might just like you'll just get a different experience that you don't get at like a smaller synagogue because like it's you can be more irreverent when there's fewer people around. You're just closer to like your own thoughts and like the actual service rather than people around you. But what was it like with having a lot of people or with a bigger room?
Um, I, so there were like 15 Regis kids who went the same night as me to Emmanuel. And everybody was very welcoming at the synagogue. At the beginning of the service, the rabbi, or like right before the service, the rabbi came over and told us like if there was anything we needed, um, we could ask her, and then at the beginning of the service, she took a moment to welcome Regis High School as a group visiting that night. So yeah, that was pretty nice. And there was a man sitting in front of me who there was like sort of like a time at the beginning like to like welcome everybody and say hi. And the guy turned around and told us if there was anything we needed, we could ask him. And yeah, I know he's just very nice.
Yeah. Onto that point about hospitality. Um, the people there were very nice. Obviously, like I not obviously, but I had like a little bit of an issue at the beginning when I was entering Emmanuel. Um, not to like accuse them, but they were kind of like profiling me. They put me through the metal detector a couple times. Um, but once I got in, I talked to the rabbi and she kind of apologized for that, and I thought that that was a great showing of hospitality. And I think that even in such a large group, they did show that pretty well, that everyone was pretty welcome there. Even though I wasn't part of the 15 Regis kids, they still showed their appreciation for the interreligious dialogue.
To move on to
Sure,
music.
that sounds good.
Um, yeah. I don't know about you, Thomas, but I think in Emmanuel the music was primarily in Hebrew. Um,
Yeah, at my service
yeah.
it was also in Hebrew. It's kind of
hmm
different because you used to hymns in English at church, but
hmm
I have no idea. Like, like the people going to the synagogue, I actually don't know if they understood the Hebrew or not. It's kind of
Yeah.
I know some people did,
Um,
but I'm not
hmm
sure if like some of the I don't know younger participants, I don't know, five or
Yeah.
six would.
They gave us a book of the hymns at the beginning and the prayers, and I attempted to sing in Hebrew and really struggled. So yeah, I'd like to commend the cantor for that and all the participants. Um, how would you compare the music to a Catholic church?
Um, I would say that I don't know. It was very different because the music, at least at my synagogue, would be sound very joyful, like less solemn, I guess, than certain church hymns would be. But like it
hmm
would just be going along, and then seemingly without reason, it would just like trail off, which was kind of weird for me. But uh, what about you guys? How was it different? Maybe Sass. What
Yeah.
was the difference?
So I thought that it was kind of in between like the Catholic, very formal singing and like the Protestant singing that we heard last year, which was very soulful and joyful. And I think that it was like again like on the aspect like the communal aspect. I think that um that kind of music played very well. And even if everyone there, like the kids, didn't really understand it, you could tell that everyone was like trying their best to sing it. And I was kind of mumbling through the songs because I didn't really understand the Hebrew. But what about you, Griffin?
Um, so like at my Catholic parish, they only play music on the organ and then they have a choir. And then at Temple Emmanuel, they had four musicians, one on the guitar, actually no, two guitars, one pianist who was conducting, and a violinist. And all the musicians were like very talented. And then there was one cantor. And as far as communal, you were talking about communal aspects of music. And the choir for me was sitting in the front row of pews. So it was kind of like they were like part of the whole group, a community that was there, which kind of made it cool. And that made the music sound like it echoed off the walls in a cool way. But yeah, so that was a big difference having the different instruments. Um, and another big difference I would say was or actually no, this isn't a difference, but they clearly cared a lot about the music because I was watching the violinist very carefully, um, because I play the violin, and she was like very good. At one point, she tuned the violin like mid-song, to like change the sound quality. I don't know. I've never seen someone do that before. Should we talk about rabbis?
Yeah,
Sure.
All
sure.
Sure.
right.
So what kind of role did the rabbis play in your service? Because you both went to the same synagogue.
hmm Well, I think we probably had different experiences because the night I went, they had a Methodist priest do the homily, basically. But there were two rabbis, one male rabbi who kind of just presided over it, and then a female rabbi who did most of the prayers. And at the beginning, she like wished peace on two newlyweds up next to the ark. Um, but yeah, so it was kind of weird because they had the Methodist priest do a long speech. Yeah.
While I didn't have the Methodist priest, I also went on a Friday, so I also had the female and male priest, or not priest, rabbi, um, doing the homily, and again, the female one was the main one. Um, but there was also one other person that spoke. I think that was instead of the Methodist priest. But I think they were also a rabbi, maybe from a different synagogue. But
Mhm.
Thomas, what was your experience?
Um, from my experience, the service was primarily actually led by the cantor, because the they didn't read the Torah or anything. It was mainly just psalms and hymns. So the cantor would be doing all that, but the rabbi wasn't doing much. He was just he said some words at the end, sort of like a homily. It's like, hope you all have a nice day, stuff like that. But he mainly just sung along and sat on the side, not doing as much as the cantor did. But who was a woman, which was kind of diff kind of interesting, because I heard that at some synagogues, women are like not really allowed to do anything. Like they're kind of supposed to sit off to the different side. So this
Mhm.
was different from what I would expected at a synagogue, to
Yeah.
have a woman be so prominent. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think Temple Emmanuel had a this is also sort of off topic, but it's like related sort of. The Methodist church that the priest was from, it was called like Christ the King or something. Clearly had a partnership with Emmanuel relating to like promoting interreligious dialogue. And I think they were part of a group, and I'm blanking on the name right now. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool that they were pushing for interreligious dialogue because I know that's something Regis is really big on. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking on to both of your points about like, this is like one of the main takeaways that I got from this was like, um, the point of a interreligious dialogue, and like you talked, Thomas, you talked about like the how you thought that, or someone told you that women weren't really allowed in the service or something like along those lines, and I think that that's really one of the main points that one of the main points why we have interreligious dialogue to begin with, and why we're just not just like staying in our separate communities, because then like these kind of um misconceptions or misinformation can kind of brew up, and I think that that's like an integral part about like uh not just like splitting ourselves into us and them, and like mingling more and like understanding each other, and like what we come from and what we're doing together. That's just my
Mhm.
takeaway though. And
yeah,
then, so what was like an overall experience that you had in terms of differences?
Did you guys wear yarmulkes while you were there?
yeah.
I didn't.
At my service, everyone
Um,
did. Like, I don't know about
yeah.
at your Temple Emmanuel, but there's like a box of them at the entryway, which they
Uh,
just
yeah.
handed everyone. It's kind of funny.
They didn't. They didn't offer them a manual for me at least.
No, I also wasn't offered a yarmulke, sadly.
Mhm.
I saw anyone who
Um,
wore one. Yeah, that was weird. Um, I don't know if people do this at your church, but sometimes you know how people wear veils at mass, women.
I've never seen that.
I've never ran
Oh,
into that. No. But yeah. Should we talk about similarities now? Um,
Yeah.
what
sh-
similarities did you notice in the building? Because we talked about differences, like like less artwork on the other walls. But as far as similarities go,
Well, I noticed that was similar to a church in structure because there's the central area, and then around it were the pews, which is pretty similar to how a church is set up. I kind of like that because it kept communal aspect, and you actually get a seat. Um, you can see everything.
mhm.
But what about what's another thing that's similar? What about
um, the
uh,
ark was sort of similar to like a tabernacle because it was like gold in it. It had the Torah in it at the beginning. So yeah, I mean everything was centered around that. And some churches have the tabernacle in the middle of the altar. Some of them have them off to the side. But yeah, I don't know. This sort of looked like similar to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Um,
also saw that similarity. And in addition to like what we're talking about, the similarities in terms of structure, I also saw people like communing before the service, which is very similar to a Catholic mass and it's very similar to the Protestant mass. Um, yeah, I think in terms of structure, it's a much more similar than I was expecting as well. What about you, Thomas, since you were in like a smaller synagogue?
yeah, like it's kind of like a side chapel I was at. It's pretty similar in that it wasn't as well kept up as the main room would be. But something I found similar was how everyone was reasonably reverent. I don't know. Everyone like the way most people acted was similar to that of like a Catholic church because everyone kind of sits down and sings psalms and stands up sometimes. But what they didn't do, which is interesting, was they didn't kneel as much as well at all really compared to a Catholic church, which is interesting. But the other ways that the synagogue goers were, in other ways, they were similar because, I mean, to be honest, Catholicism came after Judaism, but that's
mhm,
not a theological question we'll
yeah.
cover right now. Um,
Um, just quickly, one other similarity I noticed was the place where the Torah was read from and all the hymns were sung from is called the Bema, which is very similar, I would say, to the pulpit, basically in the Catholic Church. Played the same role and looked pretty much the same. Yeah, it's just another similarity.
did
Okay.
you did they bring out the Torah at your service? They didn't at mine, but uh, like, did they read it at all? Because I know that from our scripture studying that the Torah is the Old Testament of our Bible. So
Um, yeah,
did they?
at my service, they read the story of Moses and the burning bush, but that was the extent of the usage of the Torah. But yeah,
Did they read it in
um,
Hebrew?
no, it was in English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They
Um,
also did a Torah reading at mine, but it kind of stopped pretty quickly. But I just saw like the Torah on the altar. That was
mhm,
really,
yeah, me as well.
Wasn't it a bima, not an altar?
No. The bema is like there was an altar sort of area, and then off to the side there was like a pulpit type of thing. And that's called the bema, I thought.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's what
Yeah,
I thought, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
yeah, and it could be different depending on what synagogue you go to.
Domer.
So what were your takeaways?
Um,
Uh,
I would say like my major takeaway is that like even though there are a lot of differences between like in rituals, language, like in music and worship between Catholicism and Judaism, like community and like the core principles like community and the worship of God are like very similar still. Um, yeah.
what about you, Stas?
Like it kind of personified the Jewish people for me. as I was talking about earlier, like the us versus them mentality. I think this kind of helped destroyed that way of thinking that it's like Catholics and Jews instead of like people that are Catholic and people that are Jews, and it helped me personify and empathize with them much more than if I was just like learning about them in school or just learning about what they believe, instead of like actually talking with them. But that was just me. What do you think,
Yeah,
Thomas?
My takeaway was similar to that yours says was because it helped me kind of appreciate the Jewish religion by making it less abstract than it was before. Because earlier it was just a concept. It was just it's a synagogue that's I don't even know what it looks like. But after going, helped me appreciate like like it as a religion for like all of its traditions and whatnot, and how it's an actual thing versus like just an idea. Because
mm,
I knew it existed, but it wasn't too concrete in my mind. Whenever like I thought of Judaism, I didn't think of anything in particular. But now this helps me s- see like what one would be like when someone says Judaism or synagogue. I have a mental image now.
yeah, I agree. It was a cool experience.
Hmm.
Yeah. Would you recommend this to other Catholics or like
I would
just
absolutely recommend this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting
Um,
experience.
yeah, I do think it's very important.
I think that's all.
All right.
So,
Okay,
Yep.
uh, thank you for listening, Mr. Skak, and anyone else who's listening to this.
see you next
All
time.
right. Yep. Thank you for listening. See you next time.